That thing.
thing at the top.
Oh,
So go ahead.
Minutes and start. Well, I can wait to let people in. I might have to go and tell them that it'll be a few minutes. I have another couple of questions, if you don't mind. Closed captioning. I see to turn on interpretation here. Oh, and I have to put you search by name. So there we go. And let me see. Interpreter 1. Okay, enable. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. Oh, here, Catherine is in the waiting room.
I just admitted Catherine into the room.
Good. Okay. I can make her a co-host too and add a pin for her. Okay.
We get
Interpreter 1, add interpreter.
are in. Okay, great.
There we go. There. Do I seem to have that set up correctly?
I see the captions at the bottom. Yes.
Okay, and I think you are all co-hosts.
Danger.
Yes.
No, she is not yet. Make co-host. There. Make co-host. Okay, so now if you all need anything, you can do it as well. And my instructions were to turn on recording, but to also let people know that it's being recorded and that they can hide themselves if they don't want to be seen. So I don't know, Nat, if you want to be giving those kinds of instructions or you want me to do it at the beginning.
How about you do it, Carol?
Okay. Okay, there you go. Are you ready for me to start letting people in or give, announcing the link? Okay.
I'm ready.
Have a great show, Nat. We'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, Andrea. Catherine, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I have slides which I'll go off of, and then I'll go off slide and read the little stories that I wrote.
Okay.
I'll go slow,
Okay.
or whatever you need.
Good. Just at your regular pace is okay. Will the slides be on screen as a shared PowerPoint? Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And possibly no breakout rooms, just to keep things a little bit simpler.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. I'll play some music. Is that okay with everyone?
Perfect.
everybody. Welcome. Hi, Shuba. If I mispronounced your name, I apologize. Atina. Hi. Dulani, hello. Sarah. Mercedes, Sasha, Glenn, Leah, Sam, Talia. Oh, good to have you all. Hey, Sarah. Sarah. Sasha. Let's get settled. Hi, Hugh. Hi, Sonny. Stasha. Thank you for being here. Sapphira. Thank you for rocking your body with me. I see your co-pilot. So sweet. So sweet. This is my first AMC and I'm so excited. We'll give people a few more seconds. Hi Dee. Hey Leo. Okay. Hey Anne, Jessica, Christine, Lupita, Nelly, Stevie, and everybody. Welcome. Oh, and what a beautiful question. I think I'll direct that to Carol. Carol is wondering, or some participants are wondering if they'll get a recording of the session today.
The session is being recorded. The instructions for that, if there are people who are uncomfortable with that, you should mute and hide yourselves. The recording should be available whenever the conference organizers make the recordings available. I believe that's made.
I hope that answered your question. Any other logistics, Carol, or I can get started?
Well, I think that if people are familiar with Zoom, make sure that you are muted. I believe that you all are muted, but if for some reason you become unmuted, please mute yourselves. too many background noises can impede a meeting. It is being recorded. There should be closed captioning on, and it is being interpreted. So if you have questions, put them in the chat for me. And I think, that's, I think all I need to say, unless people need a more basic Zoom lesson.
And if that's all right with you, I am going to take a minute to get started. สวัสดีค่ะทุกท่าน ดิฉันชื่อณัฐดา วิกิตเศรษฐ์ค่ะ เป็นเกียรติมากๆที่ได้มาร่วมงานกับทุกท่านในตรงนี้นะคะ บนผืนแผ่นดินของ the stolen land of the Ojibwe, Odawa and Potawatomi nations, or Chicago. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session, Reimagining Parenting to be Decolonized, Embodied, and Intergenerational with Emergent Strategy. I'm so excited and honored to be with you. I am a descendant of healers, chefs, merchants, all of whom are also political activists who fled the war in southern China to Thailand. And here I am, an immigrant to the Turtle Island. I'm residing in Chicago at the moment, and I love doing this work with you. So, my liberation practice includes burlesque, includes qigong, classical Chinese face reading, transformative justice, somatic abolitionism, and I also feed birds and squirrels. I have a squirrel who comes by every day. Their name is Noam Chomsky, and we're besties now. Just fed them by hand 2 days ago. So it's my new liberation practice to tend to the land. Yes. And you've heard about my people. You've heard about my liberation practice. Another liberation practice that brought me here to you today, that I've been practicing for the past 10 years now, is honoring and witnessing unfolding development in babies and toddlers that I work with. And at the same time, holding space for their parents and caregivers to delight in all of their children's aspects and love all of who their children are. And I love this work so much. At my practice, Come Back to Care, I get out of bed and support families in building their families at this beautiful intersection of social justice and intergenerational family healing. I get to work with the tiniest humans who are the biggest teachers, who teach me how to love and how to live. So I want to take another moment to welcome all parts of you that are curious, parts of you that are excited, parts of you that are burnt out, parts of you that are not sure what this session is about, but you hopped on anyway, parts of you that feel hopeless, parts of you that are multitasking. Yeah. I welcome all parts of you. And I invite you to take a moment to say hi to your body and do whatever it needs. A meal, a glass of water, to turn off the video for a second, as I'm pulling the slides up. About to pull the slides up if you need to rest your eyeballs for a second. There it is. Today's plan is I'm going to tell you a few stories, 4 actually, about babies and toddlers that I work with who embody elements of emergent strategy, nonlinearity, iteration, decentralization of power, and interdependence. And that is because capitalism, colonialism, patriarchy, and white supremacy often reduce development in children, something that is so rich and nuanced and complex, into convenient and simple checklists, developmental milestones, and scripts. And in the US, there are not a lot of structural support for parents and people who raise children. There are no universal childcare, paid parental leave, and accessible and respectful prenatal and postpartum care. So a lot of times, parents are conditioned to contort our bodies for capitalism, for productivity, to do, and go, and go, to survive, to pay bills, to have meals at the end of the day. And because of that, we have to sometimes dissociate from our humanity to perform the good parent script for white supremacy, colonialism, and patriarchy. When in fact, parenting is so much more nuanced than that. So my hope, my wholehearted hope, is for these 4 stories from 4 of my tiny teachers would be an invitation for us to pause, to slow down, and delight in our small humans. And let these small joys recharge and sustain our resistance. Because once we're all charged up and our cup is a bit fuller, the second piece of this workshop is for us to reimagine parenting together and expanding it to be decolonized, embodied, and intergenerational. And then we're going to explore what decolonized parenting can look like. And explore how you can make decolonized parenting yours. And what parenting can look like in your case when we reparent our inner children together and honor our ancestors and land while raising our children with liberation in mind. And just a few considerations here. These stories you're about to hear are my own interpretations of the behaviors of babies and toddlers that I work with. You might catch new perspectives. You might see different elements of emergent strategy in these stories, and I welcome all of them. I did ask the families for their permissions and blessings to share their stories, and all of them said yes. And I swap out their identifying information, names, and pictures for their privacy. And as parents or bodies who raise children, a lot of times guilt is our baseline. And as you're delighting in these stories of children, guilt might come up. Come up because, Nat is asking me to delight in my kid, but yesterday I just snapped at my kid. So I hope that we can hold both joy and guilt, or gratitude and the sense of unworthiness all together. We're going to both and these emotions. And I hope that guilt can be a reminder that we really love our children. And may that guilt be the fuel we need for compassion and accountability. And I invite you to switch your hats from doing to delighting, to be a learner for a second, to not having to have all the answers or the next 5 steps figured out. And I invite you to think about maybe how these stories encourage some sense of curiosity for you to think of your own parenting experience or your own children in your life, or fur babies even. If that sounds good, I would love to start with non-linearity. Back in 2018, I was reading Emergent Strategy at a dim sum restaurant in Chicago, Chinatown. And I was reading this exact quote by Adrienne Marie Brown. Transformation doesn't happen in a linear way. It happens in cycles, convergences, and explosions. And I was having this inner monologue of yes, yes, and yes. Then 2 seconds later, 3 tables down, a toddler exploded in full meltdowns, very, very passionately. And all I could think of was cycles, convergences, and explosions. Case in point. And that was the moment that I fell in love with emergent strategy. Because development in my children are convergences where biology, relationship, culture, politics, intergenerational patterns all come together. And development are also happening in cycles where children gain skills and then they plateau a little bit and then they fall apart. And that is the cycle. Because when development is about to get to that new height with that new skill, children usually fall apart. For example, if you think of your child back to when they're very, very young, in that moment when they discover that, oh, I can transfer this item to the other hand. And then they can just go back and forth and back and forth. So as they're getting better at that skill called bilateral integration, simply meaning using both sides of the body, they just keep practicing at everything, using toys and go left and right, or blankets, left and right, and definitely their food. So what usually happens during mealtime is that it's going to take about 30 minutes or more longer because our little one is no longer interested in just eating or feeding. They want to practice this skill of transferring objects left and right. So meal times exploded, disorganized, and falls apart. And once they get better at this skill of transferring object, both sides of the body, that disorganization settles. And a teacher who taught me about nonlinear cycle is Jalen. And I wrote something about Jalen that I'd love to read it to you. Jalen is my 2-year-old tiny teacher. Jalen was ready to move or get moving after she got her leg braces to support her mobility. Jalen had places to be. During the day, she practiced moving around with her braces, but her practice session didn't end there. She practiced this new skill in her crib at night in her sleep, kicking around the crib, trying to pull herself up, but can't quite get down for 2 full weeks. So she woke herself up and she woke the entire house up. And then the cycle continued. Jalen kept practicing and practicing and practicing. And then she got a good handle of her mobility. And then she hits that plateau stage. So Jalen went through that full cycle of falling apart, plateau, and gaining new skills. And I love the nonlinear cycle in any child's development. However, the white capitalist reductionist thinking often collapses or flattens the rich cycle and nuances into a flat line of ableist linear progression, where the behaviors are the skills for children to gain and gain and gain to improve their development. And when they don't, they get pathologized and diagnosed. And then what happens after is usually their parents are often shamed into buying this individualistic solution, like buying another book, another webinar, or coaching program to improve their skills, all by themselves. And we see that in our movement spaces as well, where when movement and collaborators come together, we aim for just keep improving the effectiveness and the efficiency for profits or to keep the grant funders happy. And we see conflicts as being something unproductive or unprofitable rather than something that's generative and essential for innovation and equity. Yet, cycles of nonlinearity is still all around me. I see a cycle of synchronizing, sucking, swallowing, and breathing in newborns when they try to take in milk, whether it's through breast, chest, or bottle feeding. I also see cycles of nonlinearity in the shape of going out to explore the environment and then coming back in to reconnect in toddlers' play, where they go out boldly, passionately to explore their environment. And then they look back at their caregivers and then they're checking, are you still there? Do you see what I just did there? And then they run back around, completing that cycle to get that snuggle and get that recharge. Then they go back again, in and out and in and out. A teacher who taught me this medicine of nonlinear cycle is Dash. I'm going to read to you what I wrote for Dash. Besides in and out, another shape of this cycle is up and down. Another tiny teacher of mine, Dash, was almost 2 years old when we met. Dash was a hardcore fan of music, and he also loved his daily routines. One day, Dash, his dad, and I met at the Chicago Public Library for his favorite music class. There were lots of kids there running around that circle time area. There were lots of kids and it was loud, chaotic, and it was a lot for Dash, even for me too. Dash's body tensed up and he dashed away to pick up the drum from his music teacher anyway. His dad was very, very proud. Towards the end of the music class, Dash was feeling very excited and overwhelmed at the same time. He began flapping his hands. This 2-year-old knew how alert his body was from the activation in his nervous system. He also knew how to bring that activation down so that he didn't have to send his nervous system into fight, flight, freeze, meltdown response, so that he could stay present with us. Unapologetic, he knew that flapping his hands repetitively felt so good in his body. The predictability of the rhythm felt so secure and soothing in an environment that was so unpredictable and overwhelming. Dash honored what his body was telling him, and he showed me another shape of the cycle, which was up and down. As I was watching him, my hands remembered another up and down cycle and a similar repetitive motion that once felt so good in my body too. Dash reminded me of when I sat with my grandmother and we threaded flowers on a string to make a flower garland for our ancestral altar. Or when we would make dumplings together. We had our rhythm and cycle. Scoop the filling, fill it in the dumpling wrapper. I put water and dab it on the edge of the dumpling wrapper, squeeze it, fold it, squeeze it again, set it on the tray, rinse and repeat. So that is nonlinear cycle for me and for Dash. And as parents and caregivers and bodies who raise children, don't we know this cycle too? Where one moment you feel like you're on top of the world and you got this. You just talk to your child and answer their question about transgender and you felt on top of the world. And then the next moment you just felt, oh my goodness, what did I do? Right? Or you feel this cycle of feeling both love and rage towards your children, all at the same time. And you're not alone. Clinically speaking, it's called parental ambivalence. Yet, the oppressors, capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy, and colonialism flatten that into something so simple like this script of, as a parent, you must always love your children unconditionally. Be grateful, always, and put them first. When I think of nonlinearity, I feel hopeful because I can see that there are many paths to change. And there are many shapes of change as well. There's so much possibilities that are already here, especially in my tiny teachers, beyond all the binaries. Iteration. Adrienne Marie Brown wrote, quote, "If we release the framework of failure, we can realize that we are in iterative cycles, and we can keep asking ourselves, how do I learn from this?" End quote. And if you have little children, you know that they are never shy from repetitions and iterations. I've lost count of how many times I've watched Encanto with my children that I work with, or sing We Don't Talk About Bruno. And before that, it was Baby Shark Doo Doo. And then before that, it was Frozen, remember? Yeah. So iterations, here we go. The teacher that came to my mind is little Marisol. Marisol just learned how to pull her toddler self up to standing. She was eager to squat down, pull herself back up, and squat back down. Her low muscle tone did not present as a challenge at all. Her premature birth did not keep Marisol from squatting down from the coffee table to pick up her favorite toy giraffe and then put that toy giraffe back on the table for her mom. Then her mom and Marisol would just clap and smile and laugh together. Then Marisol would playfully whack her toy giraffe off the coffee table again. And then she and her mom would look at each other and then harmonize, uh-oh. And then Marisol would squat back down, get the giraffe, and then this attuned interaction continued. Marisol's new motor skills got refined with each iteration. What's more important was the drive behind each repetition. Marisol was driven by her curiosity and her sheer joy from doing something simply to be really good at it. She was also driven by her connection with her mother. When they clapped together, they delighted in each other, and that was so satisfying and developmentally critical. To be seen, heard, and to know that she mattered to someone she trusted, that alone was priceless. When iteration is driven by curiosity and connection, its texture and flavor is so different from when repetition is coerced for the sake of productivity and efficiency. When I think of Marisol, I often think of the ways she shows up so fully, without self-doubt, shame, or fear of failure to stop her. And as parents, don't we know iteration so well through our daily trial and error? I wonder what parenting would look like when you iterate and experiment with a lot of grace, leaving lots of room for curiosity to see what will emerge. Or what parenting would be like when you make mistakes and you go, uh-oh, like Marisol did, and iterate again without immediately weaponizing shame towards yourself for not being perfect. Decentralization of power, our third element of emergent strategy. When power is decentralized, it's shared, and we bring all aspects of who we are to the table and work together towards a shared vision, which is quite different from the traditional power hierarchy, where people at the top hoard all the power by dominating everyone below them, which narrows our vision of liberation, where we believe that the only way to get free is to keep exploiting others, and that we have to get to the top because otherwise we'll lose our spot in that preschool wait list or job promotion or that bank loan. And who came to my mind when I was thinking about decentralization of power are these two tiny teachers duo, Kimmy and Destiny. Kimmy and Destiny are preschool friends. One afternoon, they sat right next to each other, building their own block towers. No words were exchanged between the two. Kimmy's being Kimmy and Destiny's being Destiny, each living their best lives with their wooden blocks, but together. Until 2 minutes later, when Destiny accidentally grabbed Kimmy's block and they entered a preschooler's screaming match. You know how it goes. Screaming aside, though, what Kimmy and Destiny were doing was parallel play, where they were playing alongside each other, but not with each other. They showed me what it looked like for them to be their best selves without dominating each other. They both take up space while sharing space. They both glow without dimming each other's shine. As they were building their block towers, power was shared and decentralized. And I know this sense of shared power deep in my belly. Deep in my belly because I remember feeling full from sharing meals with my trans sex worker chosen family back in Thailand. Even though we were in a capitalist street economy, we hustled together, took care of one another's safety, and made sure at the end of the night, we all had something to eat. We shared our power just like we shared our meals. And in organizing space, we know this. We know how to take up space while sharing space and without dominating one another. And when conflict happens, together we look at the unmet needs underneath the conflicts, the hurt or the harm. And as parents, a lot of times we decentralize our power. When we set aside our long and never-ending to-do list and meet our children where they're at. For example, we might set aside the habit of just do what I said and replace that with, hey, you seem so sad. I'd be sad too if I had to cut my playtime short, but dinner's about to be ready. Let's go set the table together. Whatever you say, whatever is your go-to, however you meet your child where they're at, I think that's decentralizing power, don't you? Last one, interdependence. Adrienne Marie Brown wrote, interdependence is mutual dependence between things. And it means my survival and well-being is connected to yours, to my spirits and ancestors, to all the beings and to the land. When we all have what we need and share the excess, we flourish together. I got you and you got me because we both matter to each other. And I can't think of a better example than a parent and a child to showcase interdependence, where both need one another to thrive. And the teachers who came to my mind are the 2.5-year-old Caleb and his mother, Imani. Their story is a little bit longer because it includes Imani's inner child. So here we go. Caleb was 2.5 when I saw him and his mother, Imani, for Caleb's passionate bursts of tantrums and meltdowns. He found his voice. He was coming to his own personhood, declaring his independence from the top of his lungs. And oh boy, he had incredible lung capacity. What's beautiful about toddlers' tantrum is their internal dilemma, this internal push and pull between, I need to become my own person on one hand, and then on the other hand, they're worried and wondering, will I still be loved if I break free and become my own person? So, with this push and pull dilemma in mind, Imani knew that each meltdown is Caleb's way of asking her to help him navigate his intense feelings without getting lost in them. He was also asking for reassurance if she would still love him and see him as a person, even when he's not at his best emotionally. It's clear from our grown-up perspective that children need our help. But the interdependence piece lies in how Caleb's meltdowns offered a rich invitation for Imani to reparent her inner child, to break her intergenerational family cycle of emotional neglect, and to heal this old wound. Young Imani learned quickly that to keep herself out of the trouble and keep her parents happy, she had to be quiet. She had to rely on herself and to never ask for help. Feelings were to be stuffed down and snuffed out, never to be expressed. Young Imani trained herself to disconnect from her body and from her feelings to survive. Over time, this disconnection becomes a habit. Oh, that's just how I always am. Imani's healing journey involved reclaiming her feelings and her bodily connections, and remembering that the full spectrum of who she was, not just the smart, nice, helpful, polite one, mattered. When Caleb exploded in tears, screams, and balls of raw feelings, aka toddler's version of radical honesty, a small part in Imani or her inner child wanted to teach Caleb the same training she went through. Feelings were to be stuffed down and snuffed out, never to be expressed. But Imani wanted to break this intergenerational family cycle and be very intentional about how Caleb learned to feel his feelings and express them. For Caleb, each meltdown meant getting help from his mom in navigating these intense feelings while knowing that he was loved. For Imani, each meltdown meant healing her inner child who never get to express her feelings. Both Caleb and Imani were interdependent on each other as they learned to take up space and embody their full humanity. Remembering Caleb and Imani makes me realize that when I love all of the children I get to work with, I come to love the inner child parts in me too. These tiny teachers reflect parts of me that I couldn't love, that I have shamed away to blend in and belong. Loving them allows me to learn how to love myself, all of myself. The children and families I serve don't just depend on me for services, but I mutually and interdependently depend on them to love all parts of me. So those are all the stories that I have prepared for you. Stories of nonlinearity, iteration, decentralization of power, and interdependence. I wonder what these stories stir up in you. I wonder what you see in your own lives, perhaps with your own children. Do you see these elements as well? And what I would love to invite you to do is to share these observations or whatever comes up for you. And I'm going to play music and set a timer for 2 minutes so you have a little bit of time to sink into your body and see what bubbles up. And then we'll come as a large group together and share our observations and reflections. How does that sound? All right. So I'm going to stop share for a second to play music and set a timer. So feel free to rest your eyeballs for a second. Right. Thanks for still hanging together. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Thank you. About 30 more seconds. I invite you to come back together whenever you're ready. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see your beautiful faces. What a medicine for my body and nervous system. Raising children through the pandemic is even more isolating. So I want to spend this intentional time for us to share what elements of emergent strategy that you notice in your daily parenting, or in the children that you work with, or in nature, or with your fur babies. And please feel free to drop it in the chat and I'll read them out for all of us to listen together and connect, or please feel free to unmute and share. Patricia.
Hi, thank you so much, Nat. I love what you shared with us. And something that really struck me, it's still giving me goosebumps, is how you said your little teachers are so delighted to go through their iterative learning, and how in organizing spaces, there's so much fear and shame around getting it wrong or quote failing. And just how liberated our little teachers are if white supremacy and capitalism and patriarchy isn't thrust upon them. So I just feel really hopeful as a parent and as a teacher to continue decolonizing my home and my life, because imagine the league of leaders that are so liberated and powerful and free. I just feel very grateful to be in a large group of folks thinking about this. So thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. And I could hear your baby through the microphone, and that is so beautiful. Your baby agreed. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your reflection, Patricia. Yeah, definitely. How does that resonate with everyone else? I see head nods. Yes, thank you, Robin, Atina, Leo, I see, and Mercedes, your emojis. Thank you. Shuba, and please correct my pronunciation of your name too.
No, that was correct. Thank you so much. So much came up, and I thank you for including disabled kids and neurodivergent kids in your examples, because that's something I don't often see. And one of the things that came up for me on the linearity, on the nonlinearity, is that my son is non-speaking and he's autistic, and he uses a digital device to speak. Yes. And the difference, we've really embraced his language and the path that he's taking. And when we get evaluated, there seems to be this linear path that they think everyone goes on, where first they say like 50 nouns or something, yes, and then they say like 50 adjectives. I don't really know. It's very weird. And we don't fit any boxes, because actually just the other day I wrote out his journey in the past year and a half. Just the other day, for the very first time, he requested blueberries for breakfast. But there's been so much in the past year where he's talked about being happy. He's saying words from songs, like all of these things. But then the evaluators don't count any of those. They're just like, not, because they don't follow the path. So they're just like, how many nouns does he say? And we're like, do you want to know all the phrases he says? But no. So it's just so interesting, because he's communicating so much on what would be considered a nonlinear path. Right. And what the system, which is so clearly steeped in white supremacy, doesn't count anything that's like not linear. It's very upsetting and very beautiful to see how much he's picking up whatever he wants to pick up. He doesn't care what the system says he's supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Wow. And how lucky for him to have you witnessing all of that, Shuba, and reflecting that back to him. And for him to know that his communication, verbal or nonverbal, linear or nonlinear, really mattered. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. And just how powerful for little children to not feel like, oh, I don't fit in this white patriarchy capitalist box and something is wrong. I feel like we can hold space for that for as long as before they go to school or something. Or if you choose deschooling or unschooling, that's great too. Right? Yeah. Wow. I'm going to try to read the chat super quickly. And if I don't get to read what you put down, please know that your wisdom is received by the group as well. Yeah. Ooh, Heath, talking about interdependence in terms of trying to help the child and also receiving help. You're saying that I'm not doing enough because I give them space to fail and and ask for help when they need it. Yeah, what a balance. What a balance to hold space for them and their development to unfold when the systems is conditioning us to, well, to be a good parent, you just have to go, do, teach, right? Read 5,000 books in 3 languages too. And that's Monday. Yeah. And a part of decolonization of our parenting is to decide whose voice is that? Is that what we want to do? But more importantly, finding your community such as this where we can reflect back to one another. Hey, I know you feel the pressure from capitalism to help, 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 and help, but is that what you want? Yeah, thank you, He. Adina, decentralization of power has been a huge part for your family. Let go of control. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Trying to hold on to routines, but things are so disorganized, they didn't even make sense. Your kids resisted hard. But once you trusted them on that, things were able to relax and reform. Wow. Yes, routines. Capitalism loves routines. We need to get our kids in the routine so we can conveniently and without guilt go back to work the next day. Right? Wow. And I'm so glad that you releases that grip and let things be and reform. How beautiful, Atina. Thank you for that wisdom. Thank you, Mercedes. Leah, in your role as an educator, less prep, more presence. Yes, there's a quote in Emergent Strategy book too, right? Less, I see head nods. Help, less. If I can find it in 3 seconds, I'll do it. Less. If you know it by heart, please unmute too.
I think just less prep, more presence is one of the principles.
Yes, Helen, thank you. Thank you for that. Less prep, more presence. Thank you, Helen. And be like water, Leah. Thank you. I love Bruce Lee and Michelle Yeoh and all the martial artists. I want Michelle Yeoh to adopt me one day. So be like water. I'm staying ready for that day to come. Delani, I want to roll up all of those evaluators. Yes. Yes, those evaluators. Yeah. It's so hard when they measure success against impossible standards. And how do we stop internalizing that shame? Yes, Atina, let's do a poem towards the end. All righty. And there's such rich wisdom in the chat, everybody. I invite you, if you have the capacity, to hop to the chat and listening to me. I'm working against capitalist time. I have 90 minutes with you. So if it's okay, I'll move on to the second part of the workshop together. Yeah. And I'll save the chat and come back to it. Okay, please rest your eyeballs for a second. I'm going to pull up the slides one more time. Thank you for witnessing your children's emergent strategy that they embody. Now, I hope your heart is a little filled with hope or energy or love. And we can use that energy towards reimagining what parenting can be like together, which sounds like a lot of you are already doing it, which makes me so happy. And of course, I'll start us off with a few questions to ground our reimagination. How can we mirror the richness and nuance that these tiny teachers embody as we intentionally adapt the ways we raise our children to include their complexity? because capitalism coerces us to conform to these American dreams where we only exist to trade labor for money so that we can get to the top and be free, in quotation. Or especially when colonialism co-opts our nervous system and coerces us to dissociate from our land and ancestors and our kin. Or when child development milestones, evaluations, Instagram parenting hacks are so limiting and ableist at the same time. How do we expand our parenting to include that richness? Adrienne Marie Brown wrote, quote, "We are realizing that we must become the systems we need. No government, political party, or corporation is going to care for us. So we have to remember how to care for each other." And while we're advocating for policies to change, I believe we can always start practicing liberation in our home and in the ways that we raise our tiny humans. Start small. Systemic oppressions definitely seeps into our parenting and our nervous system. So we need to unhook and upend and unlearn this internalized oppression, starting in our home and in our body. And decolonized parenting is a process of discernment. You're discerning when, not if, when you're raising your child by your values and when you're not. When you're in the driver's seat and when capitalism, patriarchy, colonialism, and capitalism, also your inner child wounds, put you in the passenger seat. I'll tell a story about Charles. Charles was one of the amazing dads I used to work with. Charles told me that he often just had these rigid rules in his head, just like what we shared in the discussion in the chat. And his rigid rules sounded like, I must. And you can fill in the blank, right? I must get my 2 toddlers to clean up after themselves. And they talk about routine. Charles talked about routines to Atina, that I must get them to take a bath at 7 p.m., go to bed by 7:30 so that I can do so and so and so. It's a lot of I must. So Charles and I sat down together and we thought about this I must together. And he told me that, yeah, it's because I grew up in a very strict household. And that makes sense. And we peel another layer back. And Charles said, well, because I'm a man, I feel this impulse to teach, control, and respect. I want my kids to respect me and not be disrespectful. And we sit with that together and we name that together that, oh, that was patriarchy's script. For you as a father, this is what you need to do and teach your child to be a good father. And then we peel another layer back. And Charles said, and it's because I'm a Black man. And I need to control my kids so that I can keep them away from harm. There's a real material consequence and danger there in things like police brutality. So yes, I don't want them to be disrespectful and I want to keep them away from harm. That need is real. And we name that as, oh, that is white supremacy's script for you as a Black father. That's what you need to do. And we sat together some more and we talked about, you know, Charles, without these scripts from white supremacy, colonialism, and patriarchy, what kind of parents do you want to be? What do you want your child and children, both toddlers, to learn? And he said, I just want them to know that I'm with them. Like, I really get them so that they're never alone. And fast forward 3 months, he told me a story that his kid went into the kitchen, he was in the other room working, and then he came out. Things were exploding. Toys are all over the floor, blueberries, dinner, snacks, everything, shoes even. And then he caught himself having these, I must get them to clean up after themselves. And it was about 8 p.m. So it was around bedtime. He caught himself with this I must creeping up. And he paused and he slowed down and he intentionally set that I must aside and connect with his 2 toddlers. He said, whew, you know what? If I'm tired around bedtime, yeah, definitely. I would just be all over the place too. So let me help you get to bed. So he set the I must aside and that habit, and then connect with his children intentionally. So with Charles' example, as a decolonized parent, the work is asking, who's raising my child? Is it my values? Is it white supremacy? Is it capitalism? Who is it? And in asking that question, we get to bring in discernment. And by that means we slow down and we remember that whatever we need to do to contort, conform, and perform for the oppressors to survive, it's not all of who we are. We keep our dignity intact. And we know that we're not failing as parents, but we're in a system that fails us. And we keep that shame at bay. So like what Charles did, naming whose script is this or who's raising my child, that's the awareness piece. That's one piece of it. The other side of that coin is the action, where we intentionally make our daily act of parenting an act of social justice. For example, meltdowns, toddlers' radical honesty, which I love to call it. What Charles did was power with his 2 toddlers, not power over. And that means that, you know, when kids have meltdowns, we have this impulse to teach, right? No, we don't bite our friends, go say sorry right now, so on and so forth. But power with can look like, okay, I know I have a lot to teach, hard-earned wisdom, but let's power with first and meet our children where they're at, which in meltdowns, it means that they're not at their best. So maybe we connect feelings to feelings first, like what Charles did, right? Like, ooh, I would be frustrated too. Yeah. And then when our children are ready to hear our lessons and wisdoms, then we teach, right? I know you're so tired and I hear you and I'm with you. But we don't kick the balls around the house. I need to keep you and your sister safe. We can do that after dinner, for example. So we can intentionally choose to practice power with, even when it's hard, even when our kids are not at their best. And stop overriding and reverting back to our conditioning of power over. Another example is power with, but make it with solidarity. A mom I used to work with, Mayuri, tired from working all day. Mayuri came home and her toddler Milo really, really missed her. And he ran straight to her, wanting to play with, I think they did a horsey ride together every evening. I'm like, Mayuri, but you're so tired. That's so like physically straining. Yeah. So in that evening, Mayuri intentionally practiced solidarity. That means before power with and meeting Milo exactly where he's at, which is he needed that connection with her from being apart all day. She wanted to practice solidarity by meeting her own needs first. Yeah, she's so tired, she needed to recharge. So she decided to watch Raya and the Last Dragon on screen with Milo to get that snuggle time to recharge. So she put her mask on first, but in an activity that they can enjoy together. So it's a mixture of solidarity and power with, because she's not too tired and you can meet Milo where he's at in solidarity and not as a savior. Because a lot of times we're so conditioned to be a martyr, where our needs don't really matter. So solidarity, we meet our needs first so that we can meet our children in solidarity where they're at. So in that movie time with Raya and the Last Dragon, Mayuri and Milo are recharged and then they stay together. And Mayuri felt this burst of energy again. So she engaged Milo in different conversation. What is that character feeling? What is that character doing? What would you do if you were that character? So she turned that screen time into rich learning opportunities, but without sacrificing her own needs. Another example is when we make mistakes. We can choose accountability, where we hold ourselves accountable to come back and reconnect with our children. Let's say we accidentally snap at our children because we're so tired, and we reconnect with them. Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. What had happened was boom, 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 boom. So we hold ourselves accountable to repair and find possibilities in disconnection. And the opposite of that is self-shaming and self-cancellation. We're stuck in self-soothing where, you know what, I made a mistake. I'm so ashamed. I don't care. Leave me alone. So by holding ourselves accountable, reconnect and repair with our children, we can model accountability for them and ways to manage hurt and harm. Yeah. So 3 questions that we can hold together. And we can do the same 2 minutes of reflecting, simmering, cooking, and come back and share as a large group. The first question is, what's your version of making your daily parenting an act of social justice, where you model concepts like solidarity, power with, and accountability to your child? And I'm asking this question because I already know you're doing it in your own ways. But you might label them as, oh, this is what being empathic or compassionate look like. But at the same time, both and, right? That compassion could also be accountability, or that empathy could also mean power with or interdependence. And because with our daily parenting, we go, 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 and go. And I'd love to invite you to spend this time together, if your capacity allows, to intentionally name it as such, so that you get the small reps of social justice practice in your home as well. The second question is, how would you go beyond following scripts about how to talk to kids about Roe v. Wade, gun violence, racism, and all of that, and actually be about whatever concepts you want to teach? And if nothing is coming to your mind, what do you need to start planting these seeds for change? Maybe you need an accountability buddies, emotional support, what have you. Yeah. No shame. No shame. Yeah. But we can name what we need and get those things too. So, how are these 3 questions to ground us in our discussion in about 2 minutes? Sounds good? Okay. I'm going to invite you to rest your eyeballs for a second. I'm going to stop share. I am going to
The music could be louder this time.
thank you, Carol. Will do, will do. All right, everybody, I'll see you in 2 minutes. About 10 more seconds and we'll come back together. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I was catching up in the chat. So much wisdom in there. I wish I could save the chat. Yeah, wow. Thank you for lending support to one another in the chat. How generous. How generous. Thank you. And how beautiful to see that there's so many ways that you embody elements of emergent strategy or elements of social justice practice in the ways that you show up as a parent, as a caregiver, or as a human. So many possibilities. And there's no manual. That's like a duh, but there's no manual. And you're doing it in your own ways. All right. I invite, if you have anything you'd love to share with the group as wisdom, to unmute or drop it in the chat. I know it will be nourishing for everyone who's present too.
I'd like to share just something for me as a parent. If I can point to anything as being like one of the most hugely important things I ever learned and continue to learn the lesson over and over and over again, it's that piece about the accountability with and to your children. Like part of how I guess if you term it, turn daily parenting into social justice is to model accountability by getting through all the ego stuff and like apologizing to my kids and admitting when I make mistakes, which is one of the hardest things ever. Like, it's probably in general one of the hardest things, but the way that I was parented, there was like, mom doesn't make a mistake. You walk away. There's no such thing as a mom mistake. And so, and that's in me, and that like rises up and is like on the tip of my tongue and sometimes comes out. And like one of the hardest things that I have to do sometimes is immediately after it comes out, be like, oh, that's fucked up. I'm so sorry. That was not the right thing to say. And I was not in the right frame of mind to actually be talking to you about this right now. And I apologize. It's really hard. And it is one of the most impactful things in my whole parenting experience. Like, it is sometimes like I see how it like turns the situation and how the kids take it in and how it changes their behavior. And it's like every time I do it, it was so hard to do and I almost didn't do it. And I'm always like, oh, this is the only thing that needed to happen right now. I'm so glad I figured that out. And it's always like stumbling into it. I've never been like, I know, I'll apologize.
Yes, like, Latina. It's so messy, right? As you said, stumbling into it. Yeah. And you just lifted up this piece where, if I may ask everyone in the group, if you'd like to share, has anyone in the group grown up in a household where your caregivers or parents apologize to you? Talia, Robin, really? Wow. That's amazing.
My mom did, yeah.
Oh, because she adopted
Often.
me too. Maybe before Michelle Yeoh did. Okay.
She definitely adopted all my friends.
Yay. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. But a lot of us did not grow up having that emotional template baked into our body and our nervous system. So like Atina shared, that when it's your time to do it, something that you didn't experience as a child, you have to first get past that discomfort of like, I don't know what this is going to look like. And to the discomfort of stumbling through it and not appearing like you know what you're doing. And the hardest of all, I think, is the inner child wound. A lot of times I often hear people say, I didn't grow up with any of this like soft, and you can picture their face, like soft social justice thing in my parenting. I did what I needed to do, and like I honor that too. Yeah. And it's not the only option. Decolonized parenting is all about agility, right? We talked about awareness, which is naming, oh, whose script is that? And then action, like what Atina just shared so beautifully, that I made it intentional and go through my discomfort and apologize. And that is accountability. And the piece is agility, the third piece, where we missed it, we back out, resource, and we go back in instead of getting stuck in that shame spiral. Mm-hmm. I'm feeling like nervous energy in my heart, like, oh, I'm missing the chat. Yeah. But I trust that If it's important, you'll unmute. Yeah, and let me know too.
I'll jump in if you'd
Yes,
like.
Karen. Yeah.
Just as I was too nervous at the beginning to say that I'm a parent of 4, well, 2 and 2 stepchildren, and a grandparent now of 9. And one of the things, and I've been a radical organizer most of my adult life. And one of the things that I think that I did right was meet kids where they are. Oh, I have to admit somebody. But I have a funny story that when one of my kids was 5 or 6, we attended a Planned Parenthood demonstration. And there were counter demonstrators that were pro-life and pro-choice.
Right.
That's not what we called it then. Demonstrators, and this 5-year-old who I'd always encouraged to explore for themselves, went and looked at the other posters and decided to go and join the other side. And I wasn't sure what to do, but I let that happen because that's what they needed to. The other side had candles, and it was very beautiful. It was at night, and we waved at each other, and then we talked about it later. And we talked about it for years later as well. And I'm proud to report that this adult child is now a community organizer on all kinds of issues.
Wow.
But it was a real lesson in parenting that you really, you have to really believe in your heart that kids will make good decisions, that you have to let them explore things, and that they will be able to circle back around.
That's so beautiful, Carol. Speaking of holding that space for them to explore and see what's coming up. Yeah. It's like not driving them, but steering the direction for them to walk. Right?
Yeah, well, if I had said, no, you can't go, that I think that would have set up, just this power struggle. That it would have made it a different story.
Definitely. Yeah. Mercedes said such a powerful example of non-attachment. Yeah. So hard to do. So hard to do. Thank you, Carol. Yeah. Sarah, did you want to share something too?
Yeah, thanks. I'm so dazzled by this whole hour. So thank you so much for not only the content, but also the spirit in which you share it.
Thank you.
And I wanted to share that I have COVID right now, and I've been quarantined from my kids since Sunday.
Oh, no.
And I've been telling everyone that it's so hard to be quarantined from my kids. But let me tell you all something, because I'm going to tell you the truth right now, which is that because I feel like the script is like, oh, I miss my kids so much, but I don't miss them at all. I love having like my bedroom to myself for the first time ever. Like I've never had my own room in my whole life. And I just, I really appreciated that invitation to just be like, I get to have my time to myself, and it's really lovely. And I would never have come to this conference if it wasn't for, I would have signed up and then not been able to come because I would have had other things going on. And I'm just so grateful for that invitation to be, just like, whose voice is that? And like, why am I saying that out loud when it's not my voice? It's not what I believe. So anyway, since we're here in this sacred space, I wanted to share that with all.
That's so beautiful, Sarah. It's discernment. It's also taking up your space. Right? Yeah. And you don't have to miss them. It's great. They're fine. Yeah. Every time parents share those similar scripts with me, and they're like, but I love my kids. I'm like, I know you love your kids, I just want you to practice loving yourself too. Yeah. And you're getting lots of love in the chat too. Yep. Atina, radical caregiver honesty. That is so right. Whew. Wow, time flies. We have 4 minutes left. I have a story to end since we started with stories of little ones. And Atina, I know you want to share a poem. Yeah, would that fit within the time frame you think?
I think so. It's not very long.
Let's do it. Are you ready?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Let's do it.
I am going to. Hi, this is my eldest offspring. Speaking of which,
request because I realized it was almost 3 and I wanted to make sure you would
okay.
approve them.
Thank you. I'm going to do this real quick because we're finishing up. Okay.
Can you do that right after you finish?
Yes, I will do that.
Please don't forget.
I'm probably going to.
Goodbye.
So partially inspired by this person. This poem is called Changeling Generation. Okay. Who knows how to bring up a changeling generation? Wave upon wave, they come. Our fear of magic is not theirs to answer for. We had one job. We have one job. Trick babies, changing faces, changing places all along the way. How will we know the chrysalis from the rest of their iridescent selfhood? To recognize their true forms, we must unclutch rusty fingers and let go, let go, let go. Let them turn and try on all the jewels, turn and see their shifting colors, watch as they hold themselves up to the light. Turn, 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 surprised by the beauty, by boundless possibility. We have one job. To bring up a changeling child, you must pour love into an active volcano, tossing food and care into the searing mouth, sometimes falling in and crawling out, falling and crawling again and again and again, keeping faith in rich soil for future gardens. You will not survive it on your own, and we cannot survive without them. The world has stolen nothing, has given us the children we need. Earth more generous than we may deserve. Protect these babies, furnace forged, trickster children with sparks in their smiles, chewing metal where we suckled stone. What we call death, they call transformation. Where we saw fearful endings, they invite us, laughing, to begin. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for sharing that, Atina. Wow. The vibration of your words and the power hits me right in the heart and in the stomach. That's so beautiful. Wow.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to share.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. But since you shared your poem, if it's okay with everybody to do a little somatics thing together to ground everything that we've talked about in this session together, and also Atina's wise words together. And you might be familiar with this somatics practice from generative somatics with the fist in the hand. If you have done that, let's do it again. If you have not, I might ask you for 2 more minutes after our ending time, if that's okay. If you would like to make a fist with one hand, make it really, really tight, and use the other hand or extremity to try to pry open the fist. And see what's happening to that fist. Okay. If you feel like you're at a good point to pause, I invite you to shake the hands and extremities. And that body part that was making a fist, let's fist up again. Tight, tight, tight. Now the other hand, instead of prying it open, I invite you to just use it and wrap around the fist. Notice what's happening to the fist, to your breath, to your posture. Once you have enough information from the body and it feels complete, I invite you to shake both hands and rest. For me too, Hemi. Yeah. I think you all know where I'm going with this. To force our children to be and blossom and grow, it's like swimming against the tides sometimes. The tides of their development, the tides of creation itself. But just like Atina shared in her poem, when we support our children, meet them where they're at, and hold space for their development to unfold, things unfold at their own pace. And I think that sensations that you just embodied symbolizes decolonized parenting. That's what it's all about. It's coming back home to who you are, to your lineage, and to your inner voice. I am deeply, deeply grateful for all of you for being here together, reimagining parenting together. You can find me at comebacktocare.com. I am also a host of Come Back to Care podcast. I put everything there. My email is, I'm going to drop it in the chat. It's just nat@comebacktocare.com. Please feel free to reach out whenever you need extra support or just to connect. What an honor for me to build this community with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I want to thank Carol for being tech help, and also Catherine, and also Andrea for interpreting. Thank you so much. And Atina, most definitely, for those beautiful poems. We did it. I'm going to go hide under the table now and recharge my introvert self for 45 years. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much, everyone. I'll hang back if you want to stay and ask questions or share. But thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you, Carol. What a joy. What a joy for me.
Well, what a joy to hear somebody who has thought so deeply and meaningfully about the relationship between capitalism and our parenting. It's so important.
Thank you, Carol. You're doing it too. Bye.
Bye, Nat. Thank you so much. Your space was
Andrea, thank you so much. Thank you.
a fabulous job. Enjoy your the table time.
Thank you so much. Please take care, Andrea.
No, I will. Thank you. Thank you, Catherine.
Say bye, Zara.
Be with you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Nat.
Catherine, thank you.
Thank
Please
you
be
so much.
well.
Bye.
Bye.
Say bye.
Just hearing you talk so calmly and cool about it was so amazing. Thank you so much for all of that.
Stevie, thank you. Thank you for the kind words.
It's like the rage in which people feel about capitalism and the things that you're speaking on, you just made it so approachable. And while I don't think that we need to, tone police and make people approachable, just sentiment and the space in which you showed up within it is really great. And it was so much information. So like, I can't wait to get the recording because I want to like rewatch this. Like I'm very excited.
So grateful, Stevie. Thank you. I feel like we're going to be doing this for the next 7 generations. So that's my way of pacing myself too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your work. This was a pleasure to be here with you.
I appreciate your help so much, Carol. And the example you shared is so beautiful.
Oh, I would embarrass that child by sharing it, but
it's a medicine for all of us.
Yes. And the only question I didn't know how to answer for people was where they can find the recording.
Yeah, I don't know either.
People will let us know. And since there's a recording, I hear maybe I should stop the recording.